biologist. I work on the structure and function of biological membranes. I publish in journals like Salle, the Journal of Cell Biology, which I used to edit and so forth. But it's fair to say that most of you do not know me through any of that work, but a surprisingly large number of you, and I'm talking to the students in the audience, do know me. And you know me through another publication, and this may bring up some unhappy memories for you, but if you recognize any of these books from your high school years, I wrote them. I'm sorry. I beg your forgiveness and indulgence. Together with a great guy named Joe Levine, I'm the author of a whole series of college and especially high school textbooks that are used all over the country. And obviously many of you had, I'm sure, very pleasant experience of using one of these books in high school. I live in a small town called Rehoboth, Massachusetts. Only about 8,000 people. And for years, people in that town knew me, but not because of what I did for a living. They knew me because I was kind of like the commissioner of the girls' softball program. So I'd run the spaghetti suppers. I trained our umpires. In the summer, I used to coach one of our all-star teams. So you all knew Mr. Miller as the softball guy, but they didn't know what I did for a living. And then one year, all of a sudden, the high school in our town adopted one of those books as the standard biology textbook. My name was on the cover, my picture's inside, and my cover was blown. Now you might think it's sort of a cool thing to have the school, like in your own town, use one of your books, and it kind of is. But it leads to some other consequences as well. About a month into that school year, I'm driving up to the high school to pick up my daughter Tracy after field hockey practice. And as I pull in front of the high school, there's a woman there, a fellow coach who knows me from softball. She flags me down. Her name is Bonnie Kelly. Bonnie says, Ken, you wrote the book they're using in the high school now. And I got that big dumb look on my face that you get when you think someone is about to compliment you. And I puffed out my chest and I proudly said, yes, Bonnie, I did. And then she looked me straight in the face and said, funny thing is you don't seem that smart. So I was never quite sure what to make of that. And you get to decide that today for yourselves. Over the years, I've also written about evolution, and I've written two popular books, not textbooks, but books for general audiences. One of which is called Finding Darwin's God, a scientist's search for common ground between God and evolution. To my absolute astonishment, this book is now in its 30th printing in paperback, which tells me more than anything else how hungry people are in this country to see somebody address issues of science and faith. And more recently, I wrote a book called Only a Theory, Evolution and the Battle for America's Soul. What's the reason for writing, especially that second book? Well, I think the reason for writing it is simple, and that is we live in interesting times. And I can think of no better description of that than to point out that at our last presidential election, a group of candidates from one of the parties, I won't tell you which one, was asked by a moderator at a debate, is there anybody on stage who doesn't believe in evolution? And if you remember this debate, 3 hands went up. And those were Sam Brownback, Mike Huckabee, and Tom Tancredo. And to be fair, the next day, Ron Paul said that he'd been confused by the question. And if he'd understood it, he would have put his hand up too. So there actually are 4 people who said this. Now, every one of them subsequently explained it. But to my mind, the most interesting explanation came from Governor Mike Huckabee. And I was really interested in this because I rather liked Governor Huckabee. I thought he had the best sense of humor of anybody running for president. He's very quick. You know where he stands, even if you don't agree with him. And he's so good that he's even got a talk show of his own right now. And what Governor Huckabee said, and it was so memorable that it kind of like burned its way into my memory. Sorry about that. He said, if anybody else wants to believe that they are the descendants of a primate, they are certainly welcome to do so. But he, of course, did not. Now, I thought about that, and I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if during the campaign I could run across Governor Huckabee campaigning in my home state, Massachusetts, or the next state, New Hampshire, where they all hang out in New Hampshire. And if I did, I fantasized that I'd go up to Governor Huckabee, and I'd tell him how much I like his campaign style. I love his wit. He plays a wicked electric guitar. I've always wanted to have that talent in the White House. So I hope he keeps doing what he's actually doing. But then I would have pulled him real close so no reporter could hear him in embarrassment. I would have said, Governor Huckabee, I got to tell you something. Just between you and me, Governor, you are a primate. And not only that, so were your mom and dad. So you are descended from a primate, whether you want to believe it or not. And he might very well have responded, well, who says so? Because, you know, if it's that Charles Darwin guy, I'm not believing anything he says. And I would have had to tell Governor Huckabee, as any biology professor here can tell you, it wasn't Darwin who said that human beings were primates. It was Linnaeus, the father of modern biological classification, 150 years before the publication of The Origin of Species, who said biologically, we human beings are primates. Now, in case you're not really sure about that, I figured I'd bring along a nice picture of Linnaeus, sharp-looking guy. He probably had a new wig and wanted to pose for this just so that everybody could appreciate it. And I discovered that we have a copy of his book in the rare book collection at my university library. So I went there and I photographed and I scanned it, and here it is. This is the cover of the book. Right here, order number 1, primates, that's the primates. What's the very first genus he mentions? Homo, that's us. That stands for human being. So it really was Linnaeus who said that we are primates. And if any of you happen to run into Governor Huckabee, please mention that to him before he embarrasses himself further. But I think it's fair to say, and I think all of you will agree with this, that evolution is an issue that divides Americans. And if you want to do a little research on that, a couple years ago, Time magazine had a cover story called The Evolution Wars. They pointed out that most Americans actually reject the theory of evolution. They pointed out that our president at the time had taken a not particularly helpful position on this issue, but look closely. My co-author pointed out this to me. Look whose textbook they superimposed President Bush's face on. That's actually our book. And I was very excited by that because, you know, we're always looking for new cover art for our book. And in a couple of years, the state of Texas is going to be adopting new books, and this just might be a winner. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, just to sort of illustrate this, in the space of just 2 years, I actually ended up testifying in court in federal trials on the issue of evolution in the schools in 2 states. One was Georgia, and one was right here